This is the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast, focusing on the family afterwards, looking at our recovery in the 12 steps through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, with a focus on family. A number of us here are parents. All of us are daughters and sons. Some of us sisters and brothers, aunts, uncles, etc. So we're kind of looking at our 12-step recovery through the lens of the family afterwards, addiction being a family addiction, something that impacts all those in close quarters with us and really all those around us. And we hope this is helpful to you, to humankind, to higher power, whoever that may be for you, the God of your understanding, and our fellows. My name is Karen A., and I'm here in Jerusalem. Today, I'm here with Kirsty from the UK and Ursula from South Africa. So we're really Afro-Euro today, not just saying. And we're going to share on step 6. Step 6. Kirsty, I'm going to call on you to read step 6. It's really brief. And some books have been written on step 6 because not a lot is said about it in the big book. And yet we hope to devote the upcoming hour to step 6, looking at that in our own recovery as family members, whether that's as a mommy, a sister, a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a parent, the family of your existence. And I'm also going to want us to look at it as sponsors. How do we look at our sponsees, step 6? Because everyone on this call, thank God, is working with others, which is why we're sober just for today. And hopefully we'll inspire others to work with others as well. Yes, drop the rock. I love drop the rock. Thank you, Joseph O. Without further ado, Kirsty, will you just go ahead and introduce yourself? You know what? Maybe go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a brief recovery bio for those who haven't met you, and then read step 6.
Hi, thank you so much, Karen. Thank you everyone for being on the call today. My name is Kirsty. I'm a very, very, very grateful addict. Like, so grateful it's untrue. I'm a member of AA and CA. I have a home group in both of them. I have a sponsor. I have sponsees. And most importantly, I have a beautiful relationship with God. Like, my mind just blows. I come from a hopeless addict who could not even get dressed and washed. My mind just constantly, anytime I managed to put any substance down, my sober mind would have this insanity to take me back to that first one. And once I started, I could not stop, which made me unable to live life. I was irritable, restless, discontent, bored, depressed, anxious. I was crawling out of my own skin without the drug in me, but with the drug in me, I was dying. And today, life is wonderful. Life with God and with you beautiful people and these beautiful fellowships. Life is amazing today. Welcome anyone. Welcome everyone. So step 6 in the book says we have empathized willingness. And that means like the real importance of willingness. And I looked up the word willingness a long time ago because I didn't know what a lot of words were when I first come about. And it means the quality of like to be in a state of preparedness, prepared to do something. So we have emphasized the willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, everyone? If we cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing.
Okay, so like Kirsty said, thank you and welcome, and thank you for sharing some of your story. This is about willingness, a state that, first of all, requires us to believe in the higher power of understanding And then being willing. One, I think, is we already established in step 2, right? We have to have a willingness to believe in the higher power. Here, we're willing to believe that that higher power has the power to help us. Now, are you always willing? No. Am I always willing? No. Past few days? Heck no. Because see, this is where a lot of my problems arise. When my kids act out, when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling blue, when things aren't going, am I willing to believe that my higher power can remove all that? Am I willing to believe that God can remove my character defects, my dirty laundry, my dirty dishes, any of the things that overwhelm me? And I get overwhelmed regularly. Am I willing to believe? I'm not always willing. So there's a key here. Willing. Ursula, you know what? I'd love you to read that same, or share a little bit about yourself and your story. Read that same passage, and I'd like you to share an initial thought on willingness as it pertains to you personally in your recovery.
Thank you, Karen. Ursula, grateful alcoholic. I think I'm recovered. I'm yet to be willing. For me, step 6 was daunting. It's for me, if I read it, it says, if we can answer into our satisfaction, we can then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness to be indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us to be willing. So for me, the key word here that I actually had, I needed to get through, it was the objectionable part. Because I'm, armed with the facts of myself, my imagination can go to another place in terms of what it is that I actually can put on a piece of paper to what is I consider a story in my mind. And also the willingness to see something on a piece of paper. So all my character defects I'd written down, and I had to get to a point where I can't articulate this in a specific way, but it was kind of like, okay, so I'm going to have to dive deeper in my belief in my step 3 to get to a point, because all I had known was those character defects. And if there was something beyond those character defects, I had to then present them to a point where it was like, okay, am I willing to not believe in anything for a while, so that I could then see what God has in store for me? And if I could put that, my experiences in, like, say, for example, I'm going to use a practical one that was the fact that with me starting my life over again now, there's little material things that I've started to get back into my life, like a fridge. And I looked at my fridge and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Am I supposed to put food in it? This is what I'd lost in the last 2 years of my life while I was drinking and, burning everything down. And my sponsor said to me at that stage, she said, Ursula, just stare at it and go, God, I'm willing to do this differently this time. So the practical part for me was then leaving it there, having the faith that knowing that I will be directed into any direction. And lo and behold, I was at the shops and I was buying fruit and I was buying things for my fridge and things, So for me, on that practical level, I saw my growth happen. So that was my bridge that I had in terms of the willingness. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Ursula. And thank you for joining us from Hermanos. That sounds like a really beautiful place, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
I know. I got to figure out how to get myself there with the 21-hour flight. Willingness. So, like, those of you in close relationships or in your family, some people say things like, I'm just messy. I'm not an organized person. I'm messy, right? But if they want to declutter and get neat, before they do that, they have to be willing to let go of their identity as a messy person. They have to be willing to let go of that as a absolute truth before they get their act together. Or, as Ursula and Kirsty and I were talking about, Kirsty and I were discussing, oh, I'm late. I even have a friend, the Cook family, they're always late. It was drag on, So if I'm always late and I'm working on punctuality and respecting other people and getting there on time, I have to be willing to to detach from my identity as a late person. I have to recreate my identity as an aside. I read a scientific book about addiction and habits. And the way to break an addiction or habit, proven scientifically, is when a person changes their identity. You don't lose weight by saying, I'm going to be on a diet. I'm going to put a lock on the fridge. Ursula, don't do that if you're just putting food in there. I'm going to, not buy any junk food. No, the way we stop a food addiction is starting to train ourselves that I'm a soccer mom. I'm healthy. I look great in my clothes. I'm hot. Whatever the case may be. I'm a fit young dad. I'm a 60-year-old guy who looks 30. Whatever the case may be for you guys. We change our identity scientifically, and that proves for action. So here, when we become willing, we become able. But without the willingness, we can't. Right? If I want to be punctual, I have to be willing to be punctual, willing to get there on time, willing to make changes, saying, if I'm not ready or out of the shower by this time, I'm not going. I had an exercise class at 8:30 a.m. this morning. I saw that if I left at 8:20 and didn't do my prayers, I would be late there and I would smear my prayers. So I decided to go to the 10 a.m. one, right? But I had to be willing to make a sacrifice. I had to be willing to make a change. So willingness is the key to doing stuff. I have to be willing to change around my schedule to do something. See, a person who wants to go on a drug run is willing to put on their shoes, get their car keys, and go anywhere, any time of night to get their fix, right? A person who is a willing slaw will go to meetings and they will prowl, married men, single men, any men, because they're willing, right? So to get willing to do good things, you have to make that change and you have to believe that you can. Okay. You want to chime in on this, Kirsty? You want to take it here?
Of course. Thank you so much, girls. Kirsty, grateful addict. So, my willingness, as you were speaking then, Karen, I was like, where do I get that willingness from? Like, it has to come from here, my heart, my desire, a strong, honest desire of willingness to be prepared to do something. And step 6 on page 59 says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And I was just thinking, how do I get to that place? How do I get entirely ready? And I was having a conversation with my good friend as the meeting was beginning about the objectionable sentence. And to be entirely ready, I have to have had that solid steps 1 to 5. I have to understand that these things are objectionable in my life today, because my dishonesty, my irresponsibility, even my selfishness, my self-seeking, like these objectionable things in my years in life, they've done me a good purpose. But today I have to see things from a totally different pair of eyes. I've been reborn. I am not that person that wrote that step 4 out. That's, I wrote a step 4 about a different person. So today in my life, these character defects, the things that are objectionable, I have to see how they're not a use in my life anymore, that they're now collecting dust in my house. They're now in my way of forming this relationship with God. So that helps me get entirely ready to have that willingness to let go of these things that I've hung on to for years because they've made me safe and helped me get through. So to get entirely ready to have that willingness to be prepared to do something, I need to understand why for me. Why? But I don't know where I'm going with this now, guys. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I was actually reminded by something Joseph O said to me a while back, and certainly Joseph O, you can pop in here afterwards, is like entirely, not partially, not a fraction, not a decimal, entirely ready to be entirely ready, to be willing, to be entirely willing to believe that God can do this for me. I have to have a good step one, Joseph, told me I got to get kicked back to the start position, right? I had to, entirely concede to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. See, if I haven't entirely conceded to myself, and I know I'm totally making a butchery of the words, and I'm sure Joseph and good quoters are going to correct that and keep it true to form. But you know what I mean? And my heart is all there. We had to concede to our innermost self that I was alcoholic. See, I can't be entirely willing to believe. I can't entirely believe in a higher power if I didn't entirely realize that I'm an addict and that my life is unmanageable. Joseph O, take it away.
Thanks. You surprised me. Yeah, and I remember that conversation, Karen, and it was just part of a larger friendship. So it was just one blip. But what I was saying then, and what you just quoted was that page 30, right? The steps are in order for a reason, right? And 1 through 12, you can't just dance around and land on 6 and 7 or 9 and 10 or whatever it is. And generally, when any of those steps are a problem, or step 9's a problem, it's because you really didn't do step 8. If you became willing to make amends, you would be knocking on people's door. Right? I had to call out one of my sponsees, right, who came. He's supposed to be doing 9-step stuff, and he came to me and he was wearing new sneakers. And I was like, you spend somebody else's money on those, right? Like because you owe money to some other guy. He didn't see it. He didn't become willing, right? And, so I had to call him out on it and just say that he's not seeing things clearly. And the thing is, with this willingness, right, it goes back to, do I really recognize that these things are objectionable to me? Do I have a new employer, right? If I have an actual employer, I'm not allowed to burn incense in my cubicle if the employer doesn't like it, right? I can't just do whatever I want. The employer doesn't like it. I can't do whatever I want. I can't play loud music because I have an employer, right? I can't hang on to these character defects because it doesn't please my employer, right? God's my employer. He's hooking me up with untold blessings. And, I'm blessed to the point of embarrassment. And if I want to say, oh yeah, but I want to be a gossip, it's not cool, right? Eventually he's gonna stop the flow into my life. So the willingness really for me was like getting the clarity in the earlier steps of like, that I'm an alcoholic, right? Page 30, we had to admit to our innermost selves that we're alcoholic. I think that's step 0. My way doesn't work. When I was young, I used to lie to get out of trouble, right? I could lie today. Physically, I'm able to, right? Probably get away with some things and tell white lies or whatever. But I have to admit to myself that where does that end, right? I'm an alcoholic. If I start doing that today with little lies, the next thing you know, down the line, right, I'm doing all kinds of, shady stuff, and maybe it ends in drinking, but it's not the character that I want to be, right? So that's the ultimate thing is like this willingness, right? I think that in this step or in the doing your 4th step really comes from doing an effective 3rd step, right? There's this thing thing I coined, incomplete 3rd step syndrome, right? That people just didn't get their 3rd step. They don't really know that they're reborn, right? They say, yeah. Okay, let's just start writing, but it doesn't help. But if I really get those steps clear, then they'll naturally flow into the next thing. So with this work, with the character defects, I have to say to myself, am I running away from a drink or am I running towards being happy, joyous, and free? And if I'm running towards happy, joyous, and free, I got to get rid of this stuff, right? I got to get rid of playing the big shot. I got to get rid of correcting others, right? I used to be the actually guy. Actually, you're wrong for 7 reasons. I'll give you 4 now, and it's obnoxious. And my employer was displeased. So eventually I had to get rid of them. Anyway, the point is that if we get the earlier steps down and the clarity of like who we are, what we're all about, and what we're going after, right? If you want to be an Olympic athlete, right, you're going to have to give up some mornings where you wake up early, and you eat a certain diet and this and that, if you want to be a recovered alcoholic, then, we also, it's not okay that we just find friends that like, oh yeah, you have your stuff, I have my stuff. Isn't it rough being an alcoholic? Yeah, right. I could go to those meetings, right? That's not what it's about today. It's about like shedding them, getting rid of them, and then, channeling it towards God and hanging around with people that are doing the same thing, right? For everyone's benefit. So that's what I would say.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. To be willing, right? To be willing at step 6, as Joseph O said, we had to do a solid 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in 5, we ask ourselves, remember, you get that chance to recheck yourself, to recalibrate, is our work solid? Have we checked every nook and cranny? And we can course correct the whole way. It's not like bad boy, bad girl, get out of jail, go to jail. It's not a monopoly board. We're not punitive. It's like, is our work solid? Because, I got to see in my character defects just a few days ago when I was really upset as we were preparing this podcast. Wow. When I was in that mode, when I was in the heat of my addiction or my hissy fit, my upset, I was not willing to believe. I was like, wow, that is a clear-cut case of no willingness to believe that my higher power is a higher power and can do everything and is all powerful and loving, not punitive, and can help me. Like, I'm a Jewish girl, but if any of you hear from the Judeo-Christian faith or belief system, I believe that my God parted the Red Sea. I believe that my God created the entire universe, heaven and earth, sun, moon, and stars, dark and night, the heavens and the upper heavens. I believe all that, but I don't feel he can handle my teenager talking back to me because I'm not willing. Oh, I just got to go to another parenting class. Oh, I just need to get them a therapist. Oh, and I just want to hold on to my character defects. Oh, I'm this, and that. I won't regale you with all the beautiful things I think about myself when I'm in that mode. It ain't pretty. Got to be willing to believe. This morning I told Nikki M that I speak Spanish, and she wrote to me, "You're gifted." And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I am gifted with a lot more than just that. Now my only thing is that I need to remember. I need to be willing to remember that I am gifted with speaking Spanish, with speaking Hebrew, and with a whole lot of other things, i.e. vision, i.e. breathing, i.e. freedom of speech, whatever. Okay, Ursula, we could take this to how does this play out as a mommy in recovery? I believe you are a single mother, if I'm not mistaken. I think all 3 of us may be. How do you bring your willingness to believe that God can remove your character defects into your parenting or relationship with your ex or any other family interactions, fellow interactions, etc.?
Thank you, Karen. Funny that you actually speak of this at this moment in time. My ex-husband is going into recovery as well. So the fact that I've now done about 2 years' work ahead of him, it's easier for me to actually sit down and note the character defects without calling him out on them, but also guiding him into the direction of pointing at them. So say, for example, he'll go into a certain aspect of denial in terms of a character defect that I've worked on. It's easier for me to be able to sit and be understanding to him about where he is in his recovery, because he, as what I can see, is also willing to be better and do better. And that in turn has now ripple affected over onto my daughter, who is also going through her own issues with new loves and new, school and, doing her last year of school now, and the pressures that are on there. And if I had not learned what I know in recovery and the amount of willingness it took for me to do the things that I needed to do, I can respond to her now in a different way. So without me even knowing it, the character defects that I'd had, that I've worked on, God has actually taken them and presented them to me to say, listen, this is how we can change them. So both my people in my family have benefited from the fact that I was willing and I am willing. And then the questions that I ask them are different to what they would have been if I was not educated in what my character defects were. So, and letting go of the process of my daughter having issues at school and having her understand her own journey to a point where she can make her own decisions, and I don't get cross with the fact that she's actually still learning and understanding that her journey with God is going to be the same as my journey with God. So it's like almost like an understanding to see like she's also looked after. And what I can do on this earth for her now is be loving and understanding to her, as well as to my ex-husband, who is actually going through this process of recovery in alcoholism as well. So yes, it's just me doing the work on me is doing the work on them, that they can do the work with them and God. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Willingness is contagious. I once heard Harlan C., a big speaker in A Vision for You and a compulsive overeater. He's a fabulous speaker. He says, there are 3 things you could do for the addicts in your family: recover, recover, recover. Enough
and
said.
I didn't even know that this was going to be a part of it, because while I was going through the last 2 years have been about my step 4, step 5, step 6, and having worked on those things for myself have been a benefit to my kids and how I actually show up for them as well. So that, and I can see by that what my recovery status looks like with God as well. So maybe he's presenting that to me in that way so that I can see this is fine. This is the right path.
I love what you just said. And Joseph O. or Nikki, I don't know if it talks about this in the big book, but definitely, the willingness is contagious, or, attitude is contagious, as Coca-Cola used to say, smile and the world smiles with you. When I'm really pent up and hanging on to my character defects of insecurity, self-pity, self-loathing, when I'm hanging on to that insecurity for dear life, I make it much less possible as a mother to model that for my kids, to put it mildly, or put it more bluntly. I teach them how to be victims, how to have a pity party, and why should they be any different? Like, we're religious around these parts. Like, why should they be, believing God? Why should they be praying for the bottom of their hearts for peace in the Middle East, for, to pass their test, if mommy isn't willing to believe that higher power can make a miracle for her, that mommy can help her with what ails her? Why should my teenager believe that God can handle her social situation, the clique, the friends? Why should God help her lose 10 kilo? But you know what? I go to the gym and I work my program, and my overweight teen joined the gym. I did, I did encourage her, telling her if she lost 10 kilo, I'd give her, $250. She got it. Thank God. And you know what? She became willing. She saw me doing it. She saw me modeling it. She became willing to go. I paid for the gym membership. She did it. She said she's down 12 kilo. And she said, workout changed her life. Now, we live here in Israel. We speak Hebrew. When she had to write a paper for her English class in Hebrew, you know what she wrote about? My healthy lifestyle. Radical. Right there you are, princess. Radical. Now, all I could do is model and be, the properly appointed parent, and she signed up for whatever Weight Watchers. She did all the right things because she became willing. And you know what? Until she became willing to get her, in Weight Watchers, and to get her sneaks on and in the gym. And I helped her out. I bought her the best Adidas leggings, and I bought her new sneaks, and I bought her all the gear to psych her up, Remember our serenity prayer. Change the things we can, and be willing to know the difference, right? More willingness there. That's how we do as mommies. It doesn't always end up so pretty. It doesn't always end up so pretty. Not everyone's going to the gym. Not everybody's honky dory. Believe me. But see, I got to be willing that God could take care of that for them, that the people around me have their own process. How about that for us? Al-Anons. Nikki and I are talking a lot about Al-Anon these days. Like, I was so upset, and I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to stop thinking that I need to manage bedtime. I need to manage wake up time. Now, I do need to be around. That's my responsibility as a parent. But I saw myself getting in an Al-Anon vortex of a tornado. You want to quote some big book there? You got your big book out. What are you thinking there?
Well, I can chime in for a minute. I want to thank Kirsty and Ursula and Karen. And this is just an awesome podcast. And I'm in Luxembourg, so I can be listening in and be part of. I was thinking about the action that we need to take. I mean, what we have to have wisdom. And what's wisdom? Doing now what I will be satisfied with later. I have to have the wisdom to know the difference, as you said in the Serenity Prayer, and the willingness. So what's the willingness? And Karen, when you and I went through the steps, I said we need an action to the step 6 instructions. And what is the action? It's stop doing the things I want to do. I have to be willing to stop doing the things I want to do. And I just wanted to read this because this is such a beautiful passage in the big book on page 317. Okay, on page 317, it says, when I am willing to do the right thing, see, there it is. When I'm willing to do the right thing, I am rewarded with an inner peace no amount of liquor, drugs, acting out, food, whatever your affliction is, could ever provide. And I know that's true because our friend Joseph O always says, my employer pays me very well. And so does my employer, pays me very well. Freedom, peace of mind. It says, when I'm unwilling to do the right thing, see, when I become unwilling, I get restless, irritable, discontented. That's what they talk about in the doctor's opinion. I get bored. I get angry. I get fearful. I get into playing God again. It's always my choice. See, I have a choice now. So if you're blotting out the consciousness of your existence with anything. So, recently I told you on Mother's Day, I said something, called my daughter and said something offensive. I had to be willing to stop doing that talk. I had to be willing to make the amends. I was wrong, my daughter. What do you need from me to make this better? It's that simple. It's that simple. And then it says here, through the 12 steps. See, I need the 12 steps, all 12 steps, every day, all day could be your line out. I have been granted the gift of choice. See, that's what happens when we take our step 3 decision daily, work all 12 steps. I am no longer at the mercy. See, we are no longer at the mercy of this disease that tells me the only answer is to act out in any form. I don't care what if willingness is the key. See, willingness is the key, which means I have to stop doing the things I want to do. That is the key to unlocking the gates of hell. It is action. There's my action. Stop doing the things I want to do, and that the doors open so that we may walk freely among the living. That's a very powerful paragraph on page 317. I know it, and it's true for me. I mean, this has all come true. So if I'm on step 6, willing to stop doing what I want to do, and then I roll into step 7 and get into humility and start doing the things I don't want to do, like have God sit on my tongue. Right? I love you girls. It's just a miracle. And our friends here and Joseph getting in here, like you said, it's like, this is every day, all day that we do this. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to chime in. And I love hearing from families, because this is a family disease. And Ursula, what you said, you leading by example and getting husband inspired, ex-husband, whatever, babe, your children. This is the miracle we all recover together. Thank you.
Yeah, our main man. Go for it, Joseph O. And then you can pass it on to Miss Pass It On.
Okay, for sure. Full show. Thanks, Nikki. It's always good to hear your voice, even when it's not on Monday in Noodle. Every day, like we have this voicemail relationship back and forth, right? And I play them over and over again to get inspired. So the thing is, I thought the quote that you were going for, Karen, was actually the one from page 55. It says, with this attitude, I cannot fail, right? And I always liked that quote, because it's like it's a promise from the big book, that pretty big promise that it says, it cannot fail. But what is that attitude? That attitude is that I'm going to go to any lengths, just like I pursued my drugs and alcohol. I'm going to pursue this recovery, right? At some point, right, and it wasn't 90 days and it wasn't 6 months. At some point, I stopped running away from my last drink and I started running towards God, right? And, the day counters and this and that, right? They're like, yeah, it's 100 days without a drink, yay me, right? Okay, great, fine. But how was your day today? Were you miserable and discontented? Were you helping out others? Were you making meetings? Were you, passing the message, whatever it is? Right. So the thing is, with this attitude, I cultivated an attitude of like, look, if I have to give up these character defects, yes, they serve me, right? But I had to give up my baby bottles once as well. Right. My sister in North Carolina actually has this picture of me where they made me go throw them out in the garbage, and they took a picture of me. Right. Probably I could sue them, if I find the right lawyer. But the thing is, for like torture and trauma. But they made me give up my baby bottle, which comforted me, but I outgrew them. Same thing with these character defects of like, I like running the show. I like being the answer guy. I like, intellectually bullying people, whatever it is, or being sarcastic. But the thing is, I had to outgrow them in order to serve my God, right? There was other things meant for me, right? And it's time to grow up, put on my big boy boxers, right? And go and live life. The blessings that God has in mind for me demands an adult, response, an adult relationship. So, when I had this, the willingness came. And by the way, I'll just end with this, because I want to hear what you guys say. When it says honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, right? It says on page 568, it says, these are the essentials of recovery. Great, I got it. Essential, I need it, right? I know what that means because I speak English. And then it says, but these are indispensable, right? So it seems repetitive. If it's essential, indispensable, I get it. Why you have to say it twice? Because in 1939 American English, indispensable meant unable to be dispensed. I can't get it from my sponsor, right? If I sponsor somebody, I can't give it to a newcomer.
Wow.
If they're not willing to come to the table with honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, I don't have time for them. I'm not looking for new friends. I got enough friends, right? They like me, I like them, whatever, right? But if you want a recovery, I'll be with you 24/6. But you have to. Your price of admission is honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Same thing my sponsor told me. If I start hedging on how I report things to him, if I stop being honest, or he gives me direction and then like calls me a week later, how's it going with that? Well, this and that, right? That's not willing, right? And with that attitude, right, I'll get drunk, right? And I don't want that, right? So I'd rather go with the attitude, I'll not fail and join you guys because it's the best life I ever lived. Thanks.
What other guy do you know hangs out with 17 women who all want to hear what he has to say every word? I mean, hello.
Welcome
And
to
he's
my
a guy.
world.
I mean, that miracle of recovery is a guy admitting his character defects. I mean, where do you get that? Sorry, a little bit miss it.
And I want to fill out Nikki's quote, right? When my employer, our employer, right? We have the same boss, all of us, right? Same boss, different departments. My employer pays me lavishly, on time, and for the effort, right? Out there in the other world, right? We get paid only for the results. Here we get paid for the effort. We suit up and show up, and God enjoys that, right? So stick with the right program. Stick with.
Woo! Roll with us. Roll with us. Awesome. Kirsty, pass it on.
Thank you, Karen. Kirsty, very grateful to be here still. As you started saying that, Joseph, that's the page I'd just turned my book to speak about. So I got like little goosebumps as you said it, because I love the bit where it says we find that we find that Kirsty will not have difficulty with the spirituality of this program, will not have difficulty with this program, any of it, as long as I have that willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness, and that's every day. So I can't just have that like at the beginning when I'm a dying person and I've got that desperation of a drowning person because I can't keep my head above water. I need to, when life is great, when the miracles are happening, I need to have that same willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness as I did that very first day when I was dying and drowning, because my program of action to be willing, like that step 1 experience, step 0 experience of like coming in, I will drink and use again, I will die, gives me that gives me that honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness each day, because like Joseph said, no one could give me that. And I wanted that for so long. I wanted this program. Well, not this program, sorry, because I didn't know what this program was, but I wanted to not drink and use for so long. But what gives me that indispensable, meaning I absolutely need it, that honesty, willingness, and open-mindedness, was that drug of choice, beating me to that reasonableness. But today, what gives me them three things is how magical life is. And I know to hold on to this program, to keep growing. That's all I need. I just need to remain honest, open-minded, and willing forever. Like each day, my step 6, I have to be willing. I have to honestly be willing to be entirely ready each day. It's a daily program of action.
Wow. I love what you just said, and I'm so grateful to Joseph O for saying that indispensable in the English of that time was meaning it can't be dispensed, as in like a vending machine or a candy dispenser, right? It cannot be given to you, and this is a great segue for us Al-Anons. We can't give it either. Oh, word up. You know it. So if you've got sponsees and they're not getting it and they're not wanting it and they're not following the simple instructions laid at their feet, as was so generously laid at ours, we move on. You know, Joseph O, you sounded just like me, except you got a beard, you know. I always say, I always got a pile of dishes to do. I've always got more laundry to fold. I have to go visit my mom. I got to go visit my son, who's learning in Central Israel, in an institution in Central Israel. You know, I got no shortage of things on my to-do list. I'm always behind on my work hours, thankfully, that I, have a job and get paid for. I'm a volunteer emergency medic. I can always go out and save lives if I'm done with all that other stuff. So, like, I'm not willing to sit on the phone with someone who's making up their own 4th step instructions. Like, I really don't have time for that. And I really can't be bothered. And I'm not here to coddle anyone, not because I'm mean, just because it's not helpful. And there is a drowning man that if I throw them the life ring, will actually grab it instead of start doing, underwater ballet when I throw it to them. Right? You know it. This is how we do. We're all busy people. If we're practicing these principles in all our affairs, I promise you that we have enjoyed a modicum of success in life, whether that's professionally, socially, in recovery, in romance, whatever your thing is, volunteering. If we're practicing these principles in all our affairs, people want to be around us. Okay, I'm glad you needed to hear this. Stick on. Okay, this can't be dispensed. So if you're on the line and you have a sponsor and you are not sponsoring it, or you are not willing, and you keep hanging around in the steps or going to meetings that, hug you to death or coddle you or give you tissues and hear about your problems, or just constantly giving over step 10, but you're not in step 10, 11, and 12 being of maximum service to others, you could just go ahead and diagnose yourself as unwilling. It can't be dispensed. Ain't no one going to give it to you. Not your therapist, not your husband, not your mommy, not your daddy. Only an all-powerful, loving higher power. Okay, and on the flip side, in terms of paying it forward, you can't give it to people. If they're not working their steps, we don't have to be mean. We don't have to browbeat any sponsees. I do not pull rank on my sponsees. But if people are not willing, you just say, listen, I just take people through the workbook. This is something else, I'm not qualified to hear people's problems. I could do damage. I'm not a psychologist. That's not my role. I'm here to take people through the 12 steps, help them get up on their feet, sponsoring people and shedding their light into the world, bringing the message of recovery. Anything else, I've got all kinds of other qualifications, but not here. I do them in my job, in my parenting, in my community. Okay, Ursula, let's hear what you got here.
I'm glad that you brought up that part about sponsorship, because I had a bit of a resistance and a character defect about perfectionism, where it came up where I was like, I don't think I'm good enough for this job. And luckily for me, I have a God squad. And I brought this insecurity up, or this character defect up, actually with Joseph. And he said to me, no, this is for God is telling you to get in the game. And that for me was enough of a push and a shove for me to go in and say, okay, God is going to guide me. And there I started to see a difference in the way that I presented myself over to my sponsees. So yes, I don't know if I can throw this in, but I've got my 12 and 12 here. In the step 6, it's got a little paragraph in it that springs out at me. It says, if we ask, God will certainly forgive our derelictions, but in no case does he render us white as snow and keep us that way without our cooperation. That is something we are supposed to be willing to work towards ourselves. He asks only that we try as best we know how to make progress in the building of character. And that stood out for me, was that kind of relief for me to know, like, I don't have to be perfect in the presenting of myself, and that God will show me the way. Because I'm alcoholic mind, am stuck in this place where I think it's got to be perfect. And luckily, I've got people like Joseph and you and Nadia that will say to me, no, just do it, and God will be there while you're doing it. So that was interesting for me.
You bring up such a wonderful point for those perfectionists on here. And, you know, under a lot of perfectionism, I don't know if it's you, Ursula, but for other people is a lot of fear, the corroding thread of fear. I want to get it right. I want it to be perfect. Just read the workbook. Like, this is so simple. It's all in there. And then naturally, as you go through it, you know, you will discuss stuff. God will pop different ideas into your head and into your heart. All we have to do is read the workbook and follow the instructions with our sponsees and be willing to do that. We don't have to do anything else. We don't even have to, you know, put on makeup, as you can see. All we have to do is read the clear-cut instructions. Yes, Joseph, go for it.
Yeah. So just on this topic, what we were talking about as far as perfectionism, and also, Karen, you were talking about being overwhelmed, right? So this thing I was talking about, incomplete third step syndrome, right? Is that, you know, I have a new employer, right? I have a father, a principal, a director, right? So one of my sponsees, you know, he was, telling me how he's overwhelmed, right? That he has no time and this and that, right? And I was like, wow, it sounds like you have a tyrant for an employer. And he said, no, we talked about it, page 63, right? God's my employer. I said, no, he's not. I was like, God is perfect, right? God makes enough time. He gives you enough resources. You're overwhelmed because you're your employer, right? And that's the thing. That's the natural red flag for me, is when I'm overwhelmed. Something's off with me. My pride is coming in. I'm overdoing it. I'm overpromising. People are asking me things. I don't have time for it because God hasn't given me those resources. And sometimes I'm confused that my job is over here, right? But I want to look good for these other people, right? So I promise them I'll do these things or whatever it is. And the thing is that, like, I'm missing out on my job assignment, right? So that's the natural barometer. Not to just say, like, oh, everybody's overwhelmed, right? We'll just, we'll all get coffee and, we'll just power through it, right? That's me. That's self-will run riot. And when it says over there about self-will run riot on page 62, it says, the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Like, that means all of humanity is self-will run riot. But we're extreme examples, though he doesn't know it. And that's what I have to key on, is that sometimes I don't know it. And I know what you're all thinking, like, right, but not me. Right? Because but it is, right? Like, just like when we sit in meetings and we say, like, oh yeah, I wish my friend, Johnny was here to hear this, right? No, God put me in the seat so I could hear it, right? It's not about what Johnny would hear, right? And the thing is that, I have to key on the fact of having a God squad around me and having that humility, just like I had on my first day of sobriety. It's necessary now. I don't care how much big book I know and meetings I go to and where I'm asked to speak, whatever. If I don't have humility today, I'm dead, right? Because the example I give, and I think it's practical, right, is that I can't see mayonnaise on my face. Only you guys can tell me, hey, Joseph, you got a big gob of mayonnaise on your face, right? Or if I'm being obnoxious, or, if I'm dragging my feet on accomplishing things or whatever it is, I need a God squad around me because of that line on page 62, that I'm self-will run right, though sometimes I don't know it, right? And because I'm successful in a certain amount, because I'm accomplishing something at work, or because I'm doing this, I think I'm really doing God's work. It must be that I'm doing God's work. But that's sometimes a delusion, right? And a laptop and a desktop both look the same, right? But a laptop kicks out after 6 hours. A desktop keeps going when it's plugged in. That's just like me. I can accomplish things on self-will. I can make stuff happen, and I can run stuff and this and that, whatever, right? But if it's on self-will, there's an end date. I get flabbergasted. It doesn't go to good end. It's not in sync with what's going on around me. So in any event, these character defects that we're talking about now, the step 6 thing, those are the things that when I start to shed them, I'll give a quote from this book that I really like from Joe and Charlie. Joe McHugh, he says that, nature, there's a verse, a phrase, nature abhors a vacuum. Nature hates a vacuum, right? If there's a vacuum somewhere, it fills with water. If it's underwater, right, it just flows in, or it fills in with air, whatever. So does God. God hates a vacuum, right? Whenever I empty of self, God will fill that void. So my job is just to empty of self. It's an exact relationship. It's like a seesaw or whatever. The more I'm in self, the less God has the ability to flow through me. And the less I'm in self, then God will just naturally flow through. So our responsibilities, right, here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought I came here to get some information, right? A lot of people come and they go to meetings, right? I ask my sponsees, how was that meeting? They say, oh, it was a good meeting. I said, I wasn't asking for a movie review. Like, what did you learn from the meeting, right? Tell me what you got. But the thing is that, we're not here to learn something. We're here to shed something. That's the whole difference between Alcoholics Anonymous and going to university. This stuff on Zoom, some people think it's like, a community college. Like I'm going to go to, I'm going to click through, I'm going to, earn enough credits and then I'll be sober for the rest of my life. It doesn't work that way, right? If I'm getting the information about what I need to shed, the fact that I have character defects, they need to be gotten rid of, and that God will help me do that, right? Those are the things and then I have to do some work, right? But when I do that, God does the heavy lifting, right? He'll flow through me. And then, it's a delight to be alive. Otherwise, life is heavy going. And even though I don't drink, I'm not going to enjoy my day very much.
Yes, life is not meant to be a vale of tears. Maybe someone wants to give me a page number there where sure he wants us happy, joyous, and free.
Right.
Oh gosh, I really
Page
need to call you on
133,
those
though, we used to think so. Right? It's Nikki's favorite.
Yeah. Joseph, I got to call you on those days and overwhelm because, yeah, it's just self. I got to do everything. I got to clean. I got to this. And, and I called a fellow, because I know, when agitated, we pause, we share our character defects with another fellow. We turn to helping others. But my fellow's like, can you call a cleaning lady? We have to shed wanting to do everything. Even, again, sorry to bring in science again, but scientifically, it's been proven that if you do one task, the writer James Clear of Atomic Habits is always saying that if you want to get a lot of stuff done, the best way is to start with one thing and do it well. Sometimes when you just make your bed and tidy up your room, you get going and then you put in a load of laundry. Okay, and that's set up. And then you can cut a salad. Speaking about, mommies and daddies on the podcast, homemakers, and then you sweep the floor. And once you sweep the floor, you might, throw some stuff away. But it's like, we just have to get humble. Only God can do it all. We can't, we're not like this, like Mary Poppins robot with like one hand sweeping, one hand cooking, another hand on the cell phone, managing multi-million-dollar deals, another hand, lifting weights at Pilates bar class. And I don't know what, but it's like, wow, that's what it looks like when I'm not willing. I'm like this mommy octopus, ridiculous. Me with 8 arms and one, one big ego and one big self run riot. Okay, so just want to go back to reading step 6. We're entirely ready, not partially, to have God remove these defects of character. So are we realizing that when we're unwilling, we might not be recognizing the defect as a defect? When a few days ago I was sad, depressed, insecure, I see now that I didn't realize that it was a defect of character. Yeah, Joseph, you want to say something? That's fine, even if it's unrelated.
The topic before this, but you keyed me on something, like a life hack or whatever that I've learned that was presented to me actually by a rabbi, this Rabbi Tatz, that he said that, whenever we're in self, right, our lower voice talks in those terms. I need to accomplish, I need to make it happen. And our higher voice is generally versed as you really should go to the meeting, Joseph. You really should be, showing up more, right? And I can exactly, whenever I'm coming in with like, I need to, it's me, self, and I, right? That's doing that. It's me tasking myself or whatever. Or I would really like a chocolate cake, right? Whatever it is, right? My lower voice speaks in the I statement, but when a higher voice comes to me about what I should be doing, it's usually you should be doing this, or you should be doing that, right? And so I when I have those voices that are pushing me, to make stuff happen or whatever it is, and it's speaking in the I voice, I can tell it to shut up, right? Yeah, it's like, enough of that, right? I can part with it. Because the thing is, even though I can make a rational case for doing something, in this avenue, it's blocking me from doing what God had expected from me somewhere else, right? Whatever it is, even taking care of myself, right? A lot of alcoholics, myself included, forget to have fun, right? We become human doings instead of human beings. Right. And we're so, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I got to have 90,000 sponsees and keep in touch with them every day and this and that. Right. And then at the end of the week, we don't have fun. Right. Who orchestrated that? Me. Right. It was a self-fulfilling ride. God didn't want me to be doing that. He wanted some of those sponsees to be on other people's shoulders or whatever it is. Give somebody else a chance of this and that, whatever. Right. I'm done running the show. Right. I have to be. Right. It became objectionable to me to do that. It's too stressful. I'm not good at it. Right. It's like the world voted like, get Joseph out of office, right? And I had to put it down and go do something else. But the thing is, once I realized, right, that was the case, then life became easy. It just became gravy. And I stay on page 63. Stay close to him. Performers work well. The rest is gravy.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, we're fired. We have a new employer, right? It was decided in The Hague. As they decide on all world political leaders. We won't go there. That is just so great. Just became entirely ready to have God remove our defects. And I love that, like, when I'm saying that's just so easy. That's so easy, people. People in the back, as Nikki says, I hope you all heard that. I'm thinking, I got to clean my house. I got to visit my son. I got to I'm making a bar mitzvah in a month. Go me. Mazel tov. I got to make a bar mitzvah. I got to get everyone's hair, makeup, and outfits done. No, you just go visit your son today. You should be on this meeting. I was thinking I got to put my kids to bed, and it was like, thank you, Mazel tov. And that voice, what once was a flimsy reed, as we read in step 2, what once was a flimsy reed is like, no, Karen, you should go share at an unrecovered Al-Anon meeting. I thought, right, because it's so wonderful. My kids have such a beautiful, restful sleep when I strong arm them into bed and tell them 50 times to go to sleep and that they have to be on time and they have to wake up in the morning. I'm not saying we want to be negligent. I'm not advocating for negligence. But you know what? The world will be a better place if I get myself to that Al-Anon meeting. Just for today, just for this week. It's not the same case every week. But once was a flimsy reed. How does that continue? Became the loving hand of an all-powerful God?
Basically. Yeah.
More or less. Joseph?
Yeah, I'll go and I'll look it up. I mean, continue.
I just really want to leave off with that, because less of me, more of higher power. Let's just take a second. We can all take a deep breath together. The hour is up, and empty ourselves out of self.
Okay, so
and
it says,
ourselves. Yeah.
Sorry, Karen, 28.
And be willing to be full of higher power. Go ahead.
Yeah, we in turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. New life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. Like there's such power in that. Page 28. Awesome.
So page 28, let's just be willing to let go of our character defects. Be willing to let the loving hand, the all-powerful God, lead us throughout the day. May you all have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining me and the gang here, Kirsty, Ursula, Joseph, Nikki, all our regulars, Brian D, Hannah Root, and some others of you. It's great to meet you. Great to have you. Keep coming back. We're trying to be on every
Karen,
say?
Can I have 60 seconds and I'll say something that
As much as you want, sir.
No, don't say that. Everybody else is cringing.
Oh.
my ex-wife used to say, because my last name is Ober, you're overdoing it again, right? He was classic, right? She has a support group in Paris now for international for people who deal with Joseph, right? But the thing is that just the word mazel, right? So I'm going to teach guys some Hebrew or whatever, but this is actually for Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Mazel, right? It's Mem Zion Lamed. That's how you spell it, okay? But it could be an acronym, right? Mem could stand for Makam, which means place, okay? And Zion could stand for Zman, which means time. And Lamed could stand for Lashon, which means speech, right? So, and we say Mazel Tov, meaning that you should be in the right place at the right time, saying the right thing in good speak, right? But the thing is that that's for the Hebrew speakers out there or whatever, if you want to, get some cultural infusion of Judaism. But the thing is, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is about also. It's when I have the correct job description and the right resources, life is happy, joyous, and free, right? Right place, right time, saying the right thing. It's the character defects that are messing that up. I don't get the correct instructions from God because I'm doing too much over here. And I'm spending my resources on stuff I wasn't supposed to be involved in to begin with. So being in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And that's ultimately going to get us to page 33, being happy, joyous, and free. It's me that takes me off of that, right? Takes me off of page 63, puts me back on page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that is the root of our trouble. It's not, we didn't come here for information because we could all read it right there, right? I got it, right? I'm the source of my troubles, right? I read it, I got it, right? And yet, when I hang up from you guys, I'm going to go make more trouble, right? Unless I get clear, right, that my employer doesn't like it, the blessings are going to be removed from me, right? And it may push me towards a drink. At any given moment, we're either walking away from our last drink or towards being happy, joyous, and free, right? So I just, bless everyone, get it clear. The character defects are interfering with that. And the sooner we shed them, God will do the heavy lifting, and, we should all be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Keep joining us at Afro-Euro Reco12. Someone wants to stand in for me next week. I might have to be at a professional conference next Wednesday, 9 a.m. GMT. We're also happy to get new speakers, either private message me or message Justin at Reco12 or anyone you know on this call, Kirsty or Ursula. They'll be in touch. We'd love to have you on, sharing your experience, strength, and hope. Have a great day. Be well, everybody. Bye-bye.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low, but now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.